All right, we got a special one for you today. We got Antonius Funk, Commander FunkyPants in here, and we're going to do a deck tech. We went deep on Nashi Sage's Scion. We're really excited about this one. Really cool mono black commander, does some pretty nutty things, and can be quite explosive. Let me know in the comments, please, what you think about this. We haven't done a long form deck tech like this before, so I'm really excited about it. Just in the comments, let us know. Or maybe if there's a commander that you saw that you think is a cEDH viable from Kamigawa, let us know in the comments, please. And let me know what you think of this if you want to see more of these long form deck techs. Thank you guys so much. We're going to do a quick little, show video like we normally do, and then it's off to the races. Because it's on a motorcycle, right? Off to the races. We got to give a huge shout out to the sponsors, ALTERSLEEVES.com. We've got another Patreon and Twitch sub exclusive Alter Sleeve. The best way to get it is a $5 Patreon sub. It gets you a code for this Alter Sleeve. It's a brand new one by Bearded Tales of Woe. It's the third in our series of 3 horror poster style sleeves. We did Demonic Consultation, Underworld Breach, and now we've got Mana Crypt. We're going to put it up right here. Right here. This thing is absolutely incredible. It's gorgeous. It's got that really retro feel to it, and it's so badass. And it's got that coin flip on there for all you Krark and Sakashima fans, all you Krark coin flippers out there. Each one has been better than the last, truly, and I'm super proud to put this one out there. Any Twitch subs, we're on Twitch on Tuesdays and Fridays, 8:30 Eastern, or Saturdays at midnight. Eastern, 9 Pacific for Chillax and Mundar. Go on there, get a Twitch sub. Use your Prime sub to just get it, and then you fill out the Gleam thing, and at the end of the month, you get a code for this Alter Sleeve, as well as free shipping on any extras, and it all goes to help the channel do bigger and better things. We also want to give a giant shout out to MOXFIELD.com. These guys are the premier deck building website. You've seen Sleepy Thanos, CJ running the MOXFIELD playtester as their battlefield on spell table. That's an amazing way to make the spell table just always look, you don't have to worry about lighting. It just solves all of your AV problems by just using OBS to just run the MOXFIELD playtester. There's so many other cool features, the EDH rec integration, the Scryfall integration. They've just got everything all jammed into one. It's such a good program. Go on there, make an account, give us a follow, show them the love, support their Patreon too. Thank you guys so much. And last but not least, we've got Bonfire Store up. There's so many cool things. We've got the Big Thinkies beanie for that thinking cap action. You can rep us in any different way. We got hoodies, we got t-shirts, all sorts of, we even got a mug, a cup that you could drink your coffee out of and stay super hyped like me all the time. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, for watching these videos. Be safe out there. What's up?
Okay.
We're doing a deck tech. I don't do these too often. I've never done one before, so I'm super excited about it. We've got a good friend of mine. This is Anton. Antonius, or Commander FunkyPants, if you will. You've seen him guest on many of our VODs, live streams, all that sort of stuff, and we saw some of the Kamigawa spoilers and just went absolutely bonkers. This commander was spoiled, and being the spicy mono black players that we both are, we kind of said this is worth brewing for sure. And I was like, I don't know, I was doing something, probably childcare, who knows, busy doing something, and like by the next time I looked down at my phone, Anton had brewed this entire thing. So you've got a list that you've also been piloting in what spell table games, right?
Yeah, spell table games, both in on Discords and then random pickup games in spell table playing cEDH, and it's been awesome.
And it's been, so you've been playing these into, not just into like Nitro or high power pods, but into cEDH pods specifically.
I've specifically been trying to play it into cEDH pods.
And it's doing good. All right, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So what's the commander? Tell us a little bit about what this guy does.
All right. So, I mean, obviously this is not a real card. This is
hey, listen, it's a playtest card. We don't have them in our hands just yet. It's a playtest
card. This is Nashi, Sage's Scion. Nashi is a 1 black rat ninja who, whenever Nashi does combat damage to a player, I can exile the top. I not even can. It's you just exile the top card of everybody's library, and then you have a Bola Citadel like effect where, for however much the card's mana value is, you can cast it using your life, and you can do that for one of the cards. So generally, the idea with this is to try to abuse like a top deck tutor, either in response to combat or before combat, to get something nice up top of your library like I don't know, this Peer into the Abyss is a pretty good hit, which is what you usually go for.
So it's all players. It's not just opponents. It's all players.
All players. So it's my library
Okay.
as well as everybody else's, and I can play it a land from that as well. So it does have the clause that says like if you cast a spell from one of these cards, then you pay life, but otherwise you could just play something. So if I'm playing a land, I can just pop it down on the battlefield, which is pretty cool. If you miss land drops for some reason, you can steal somebody else's land. Pretty much every single time I hit somebody, we see a land.
Yeah, you'll see at least
I've
one
had
land.
mi-
So you can play
yeah.
other people's lands as well if you're missing land
Yes.
drops. That's really cool. Or if
Yeah.
you
So it
want to
secretly
take
could be
away-
like a Wooburg deck.
Yep.
What was that?
I was gonna say, or if some like amazing utility land shows up on the top of somebody's deck, and you're like, oh, let's take that. I mean, I guess it gets exiled. Like it doesn't get exiled and then go back into the library or anything, right? It's just like that.
No,
card
they're
is
exiled. They're gone. They're gone.
which is
And-
which makes people lose their minds. First and
Yes.
foremost, like I've been playing Umbris a lot, and Umbris just makes people like it makes people lose like cognitive reasoning. Like they'll be like, no, this has to stop at all costs.
It can't be gone.
Yeah. So
It's not so like insolent as Umbris. Umbris is like, how about I take a chunk of your deck and just say
stack.
bye.
But this is like one at a time also gets people like super bugged out, especially in cEDH where that card could be something that like every card is going to be some card you need, you know? So like a lot of times it's a card that like is a pivotal piece or interaction or something that will like greatly benefit you rather than them. Like it's really brutal. Like I know from playing against like Paco, like how just absolutely nightmarish that is to have a card just gone. And to have the opponent be able to use it is crazy. But the fact that it lets you do it off of your own library as well is very funny. Because like if you've got a pivotal piece, it means like no matter what's across the table there, you have to just be like, all right, well, I gotta play this card from my deck, or it could like has it worked against you? Have you flipped something where you're like, oh, I want to play this, but I need to play the other player's thing?
I mean, it's definitely hit things at an inopportune time. Like I think Yogg's Will is the one that I've seen it hit a couple of times. Where I'm like, well,
all right, bye.
not
forever.
the right time for that card. Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you just cast it? No, because like oftentimes when it hits Yogg's Will, I have like. It'll be the first hit if I don't have a tutor for some reason and Nashi's out and I'm just swinging to blindly try and screw people over. You know, yeah, Yogs will get hit, or I don't know, maybe I'll hit like a top and just be like, okay, I mean, there may be other things that are better, but I'll cast the top because I know I want that for later.
Because that's super clutch for you to be able to manipulate that before the swing happens.
But I've had really funny hits from other people. I can't tell you how many times I've hit Thassa's Oracle. It's at least 3 times now I've hit people's Thassa's Oracle, and they're just like, cool.
Fuck me. Give me just a second. I want to do what I realized is I can do a window capture of the card section in spell table so that I can actually get the cards up below our faces there so that people might.
Oh yeah, there we go.
It might be legible. If it's not, we may put something in afterwards.
Just go to like Gather or something and have it do it.
Have it pull it up. This is like semi-legible. Yeah, that's sure that works.
Cool. Why not?
So there's Nashi. If you can read it, good for you. If you can't, you can't. So let's get into the meat of it. So what's the deck want to do besides like incrementally irritate people? What are we looking to do here?
Ideally, you get Nashi out turn 1, and you swing it turn 2. If you have a way like Lightning Greaves is in the deck because you just want to be able to slap that on Nashi and swing right away. So an ideal turn 1 is you get Nashi out with I don't know, maybe you have like let's say you have a Lotus Petal, let's say you have an Ancient Tomb and a Jeweled Lotus, and then the Lightning Greaves in hand. So you Ancient Tomb, tap that, drop the Lightning Greaves, crack the Jeweled Lotus, play Nashi, and then put the boots on Nashi, swing in response to damage, crack the Lotus Petal, and play a Vampiric Tutor, put Peer into the Abyss on top. Pay 7 life, cast Peer into the Abyss, draw half your deck, and absolutely win for me.
And it's off to the races. So
Yeah.
how consistently are you getting a turn one Nashi? Are you just like mulling to that exclusively?
I mean, I mull to get Nashi turn one pretty much every game.
Okay.
If I don't get Nashi turn one, it's coming down turn two. The rare occasions where that hasn't happened, I've found other things in hand to try to disrupt the board. But generally, you really want to mull to get Nashi out as soon as possible, because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to hit.
Yeah.
The one thing Nashi doesn't have is evasion, so you kind of have to create evasion for Nashi through other means in the deck. If people, or you can just strategically swing Nashi at people who are not going to block with their creatures because their creatures are far too useful for inhibiting other people or for their own game plan.
So when people have like dorks or I mean, Nashi's power and toughness, we're looking at a 3/2. So people aren't blocking with your. I mean, they're blocking. Yeah, Thrasios is a 1/3, 1/4. So people aren't blocking with their Thrasioses. Nope. They're not blocking with their Tymnas. They're not blocking with their Ragavans. They'll definitely
not blocking with the Najeela.
Yeah. So there's a solid amount of commanders that are not going to be taking this, especially that early. Commanders that are coming out that early.
Absolutely.
Your Kroms, on the other hand, are a little more problematic. So so you're looking to get Nashi out there turn one and start swinging turn two, and it's got enough ramp in there. I mean, you're in black, which is awesome because you can ritual it out, which is really cool. I mean, I love just like turn one ritual 3-drop is always a good feeling. Are you? And so I guess we'll get into what the ramp package looks like to kind of make that a little more viable as well. So let's get into the deck and take a look. You said you've got it divided up into different sections, so let's take a look at it.
Sorry, there was like a fly right in front of me. So.
No, it's good. Just
we'll look at the main win cons first. So obviously, number one, Peer into the Abyss. Like 100%, if you're going to toss something on top of your library, toss Peer into the Abyss on top of your library. It's like just a no-brainer. You do that 100%. And
you pay 7 life, and then you're paying like 15 or whatever it happens to be to draw another 40 cards plus. And
it truly doesn't matter. Like when you cast Peer, there's enough going on in this deck that you're gonna hit something that's gonna get you there.
Okay.
So Peer into the Abyss is the main one that you can manually storm once you have half your deck in your hand. We don't need to go through all the different ways to do that because it's a lot of different permutations.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of mana rocks. There's Skirt Prospector, which is an all-star in the deck. Yogg's Will, after you've discarded a whole bunch of stuff to Skirt Prospector, there's a reanimation package in the deck as well. So, it all kind of comes around. Then another classic combo is the Aetherflux, Bola Citadel Sensei's top combo. I mean,
Love it.
How can you go wrong with that? Like, sometimes you just cast the Citadel and then you cast your tutor because you have one in hand and you put the top on top and you're like, golden. You get it because there's enough top deck tutors in the deck or other things in the deck to get you to Aetherflux. So that's a classic in there. And then another one is the Chain of Smog Professor Oryx combo, which is really funny. Because I found Professor Oryx actually works on a couple fronts. You can remove creatures with that. You can look at the top cards of your libraries, put one in your hand, the rest in your graveyard. So it works with the reanimation package in the deck. And, if you got Yogg's Will, you could just go for broke. And if Chain of Smog gets disrupted, you probably still have other things in your graveyard that you can use. So those are the main...
That's also awesome because... Liliana, so I'm used to running Witherbloom Chain of Smog, and that's a lot more disruptible than a Planeswalker. There's a lot less things that people will have in hand to bounce a Planeswalker. I mean, to bounce or remove it. Like, I guess like bounce a permanent. Like if somebody's got some sort of bounce
permanent, they can still do.
But like otherwise, that's a lot. I mean, and obviously Chain is disruptible via counter spells and stuff like that, but it's much less susceptible than Witherbloom, which could just get eat like a shock basically in your ass out. So that's actually really, really cool and cool to think about that it's
pretty funny.
A little bit more resilient. Yeah, people. I mean,
and just being able to cast a 6-drop with your life is, I don't know, it's kind of nice, and she gains you life back when you're casting instants and sorceries. So like,
Oh yeah.
there is
Yep.
a multitude of value to her because you're basically chewing on your life total through the
Right.
entirety of your play
The
patterns, and
the
yeah,
the spell, is it spellcraft? What's the
magecraft.
magecraft? So the magecraft ability actually is very, very relevant to the
Hmm.
deck, and because you want to be gaining life back, that makes a lot of sense as
Hmm.
well. That's awesome
Yeah,
to see that it's that useful and that much more resilient in here.
yeah.
So
And you'll see some other cards in the deck that are there because they have utility in both the life gain and in other factors.
mhm.
So getting into the ramp, let's see. Let's get all the artifacts out here, and we'll just go through all of our artifacts. All right. So obviously we're running all the 0 CMC rocks, like a bunch of Moxes, the Jeweled Lotus. So Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, Mox Hammer, Opal, Diamond, Chrome, and Jeweled Lotus. And then for 1 CMC rocks, we got Soul Ring and Mana Vault.
Yep.
For 2 CMC rocks, we got the Arcane Signet and Grim Monolith. And then we also have a Jet Medallion in the deck because making things cost less is lovely.
It's so massive to be able to have that
Yeah.
out there is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that from playing Keurig, for sure.
Yep.
Is having that available to you is just so. I mean, in Keurig, it's just essential to be able to reduce that colorless cost for sure.
Yep.
So, I mean, as far as doing stuff in this where you're relying on a storm turn, it really helps as well.
Yeah. And guess what? Crick's in the deck.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
makes
Awesome.
So Wishclaw Talisman, pretty obvious. We take all the tutors we can get. Scroll Rack is real good in this deck.
Yeah, okay.
Real good. You're just like, oh yeah, this thing in my hand that I want to cast and don't have a mana to pay for, I know what to do. And then we start getting into some evasion elements here. So Manifold Key is both utility for untapping like Mana Vault or Grim Monolith, but also 3 and a tap on this. It says target creature can't be blocked this turn. So
Okay, that's your evasion right there.
that's one of them. Key to the City, we got a reanimation suite. We can tap it, discard a card, make a target creature unblockable, and it also, if we want to pay on the untap, we can draw a card. I don't really ever do that, but
No,
it's an option.
two mana draw a card like seems real good on paper, and then like and you're like, okay, untap, and now we're just gonna untap it and use my mana to do stuff.
Exactly.
But in a pinch, it is janky card draw, which is always cool.
Mm-hmm. I've been starting to use Commander's Plate, and it actually is pretty good. It's not the fastest equipment to use, but it does give Nashi protection from a lot of relevant stuff, and it makes him really big.
Right, because we've got okay. So four mana is not terrible on Nashi specifically. When it's a little slow, but it does give that evasion and buffs up the commander as well, which is pretty interesting.
That can be very relevant because like sometimes people will hit like a 2 CMC or two toughness board wipe, and that's just really annoying.
Oh, so and the 1 mana cost is also in Urza Saga range, which we fucking love.
Exactly. And then the Greaves, we love the Greaves. They're great.
Yep.
Get Nashi swinging as fast as possible. And Shadow Spear,
yep.
Also pretty great because it gives him trample and lifelink. So it does 2 things that are wonderful. Makes Nashi a little bit bigger and lets you get over some smaller creatures that people might want to block with. And you gain life. So
Shadow Spear. I run
nice.
Shadow Spear in so many decks, and it's so great. So what's also really cool is the activated ability on Shadow Spear.
Yep.
You don't need it equipped to activate that activated ability. You could just take away stuff's protection, just beep beep beep, just with it on the battlefield as a 1-drop artifact, which is really, really slick.
Yeah, somebody's got Avacyn. They think they're like gonna board. I mean, not that you see Avacyn in fucking CDH that much, but like somebody got or like heroic intervention, let's say, to try and save their board if there's like a wipe or something coming, and instead it's like nah. But that's like a real fringe case that doesn't usually happen as much in CEDH, but it is a nice little option. There, the other factors on Shadow Spear I would place a little bit higher value on in this deck, but it's always nice. then we have some instants. Entomb, since we have some reanimation going on, Entomb works well in this deck.
Yep.
Vampire Tutor is probably the best tutor in the deck because we can hit somebody with Nashi, have the trigger on the stack, and then tutor, and then put whatever we want up top. Rain of Filth, it's kind of essential for when you're going off. Just generate that extra mana by sacrificing your lands. Of course, Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual both are pretty essential in any kind of storm build.
Yep.
Culling the Weak, like on your storm turn, once you've hit, Nashi can get nuked. Doesn't matter.
Oh, interesting. So the commander, once you are on your peer turn or whatever, once you're storming off, Nashi is good to go. And worst case, you get blown out. You're like, okay, like next turn you start it over or whatever. But like if you're getting blown out at that point, like it's a blowout.
So
exactly. Culling the Weak is really, that's funny that it's just like because I'm always like, oh, you got to preserve the commander, you got to keep it around because you want to keep going. But at that point, you are all in on your storm turn, so you don't really need to rely on Nashi to do the thing anymore because it's like post combat and all that. Awesome.
Exactly. So it's kind of funny, and I've used it on Nashi almost every time I've cast it, so it works well.
That's
Deadly Rollick, obviously you with that removal. Slaughter Pact, similar. Snuff Out, another one. You can see a theme. We're trying to pay free removal here.
As
Defile is pretty funny. Defile is one that I like. So this one, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. Since I have an Urborg in the deck and some swamps, so Urborg is a common thing to have out. So you give something -2, -3. You give something -4, like whatever you have, like, and the -1 gets around any kind of like indestructible,
Yep. That's a really good one. That's it. That might be like I think that one you see in Keurig lists as well, because it doesn't have any colorless in the mana cost as well. It's just all right. Get rid of it.
And Dismember, another one that it's basically it just costs 1 mana to hit something.
Dismember's so good.
Yep. And then there's Shallow Grave, which if you have discarded something and you want it back around, like a Crick or like a Villas or something, then you're pretty good. Villas out when you hit with Nashi is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty amazing. You're like, I will cast this. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, and Shallow Grave is great too because it's just like instant speed. And what's always funny to me about Shallow Grave is its graveyard order matters, which is always funny to see. Like it's such a goofy thing. You don't see it too often on commanders these days. So I love that as well. Shallow Grave's an awesome hit.
And then the last instant is Imp's Mischief, which is just such a great card. I love it so much. It's the only counterspell I really, really love in black. I know that we were talking about, what is it? Not Snuff Out, but the
Withering Boon.
Withering Boon. Yep. We were talking about that recently, and that's a consideration for the deck as well. I'd have to figure out what I'd take out for it, but Withering Boon is pretty good because of the creature heavy meta right now. But Imp's Mischief is it's pretty similar to Deflecting Swat. Obviously, it's not free. It doesn't change the target of abilities, but changing the target of spells is pretty awesome. And this could be like at the end of a wizard battle, somebody is fighting over their own peer, and they're like, deflecting swat it, and at the end of the wizard battle, well, maybe not. Maybe I deflected swat it, or Imp's Mischief it over.
I run it in Marin. I love the card. It's great to have counter backup. The cost is good. It's not intensive on the pips, which is great to see. I always forget that you lose life equal to the spell's CMC, but that's kind of like, or the spell's, mana value. But that's kind of across the board in black anyway for doing stuff like that. And it's got so much utility. Like the card is just like, it covers so many bases. It does so much stuff. So I love seeing Imp's Mischief pop up.
Imp's Mischief was great. I'm pretty sure that you introduced me to that card. So, thank you for that. So let's see. We're going on to sorceries now before we get to any kind of creatures. So, okay, so we'll leave that there. All right, so obviously we got a bunch of tutors here coming. We have Imperial Seal, Another top deck tutor is pretty great. Scheming Symmetry is hilarious in this deck.
Yep.
Pretty much you cast Scheming Symmetry and everybody's going to, whoever you pick is just going to find a land. You know, they're not going to find something that's optimal.
Yep.
They're just going to be like, nope, it's gone. Here's the land.
They're
whatever.
ready to ditch it. But it's so like, it's so at 1 mana, it's so good. Like there's no, there's especially with Nashi out, it becomes 0 downside, you know?
Yep, exactly. Demonic Tutor, obviously Diabolic Intent. Similar on a Storm turn, you can just sacrifice Nashi. Praetor's Grasp, because why the hell not? Play with something else out of another person's library. It's kind of what we do anyhow.
Praetor's Grasp is always an interesting one for me. I find, and it's probably just because I'm playing so many spell table games, but I find myself not casting Praetor's Grasp that often. Do you find yourself casting it a lot, and what are your targets?
I find that Praetor's Grasp is like a real utility workaround kind of tutor. Because I'm not running the Forbidden Tutors in this deck, I'm not trying to steal somebody's Thoracle and go for a win that way. Yep. What I'm usually doing with the Praetor's Grasp is trying to get around an opposition agent or remove something that I know is going to be real bad in the game.
Okay.
And I would like to have it instead of them having it, or I know it's sometimes I'll just like get the best removal for the moment out of another person's deck. Okay. Because I know that they run a card that is essential for handling whatever board state is happening.
So, like removal for maybe some sort of stacks piece that's stopping you from doing your thing, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, Praetor's Grasp, I just look at it more of as utility rather than I win or I tutor up my win kind of thing. But it can function like that. You can grab somebody else's Vampiric Tutor and just boom, there we go. Now I'm good to go. But I agree that it is a tricky card. It's a little bit more situational. I don't find it as versatile as the other tutors, and it also costs more. So I have a Grim Tutor here. This is actually coming out. This is going to be replaced by a Cruel Tutor, which is Cruel Tutor is 2 and a black, and it's a top of library tutor. So that's why
that makes a lot more sense. Cruel Tutor, because it's 2 life, sorcery, less mana intensive, and it goes to the top of deck, which is like normally you don't want stuff going to top of deck, but in this deck it absolutely makes sense. And if you're casting Nashi turn 1, you've probably got the 3 mana to do that on turn 2.
Exactly. So that works pretty well. So ignore the Grim Tutor, everybody watching. Just imagine that it's a Cruel Tutor instead. We can see if we juxtapose that image over on the side of the screen over top this card. Just ignore it. And then
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I've got the tutor displayed below your face, so it's all good.
Yeah, I see it. And then we have a bunch of like hand disruption cards because I found that those are pretty good. You don't have counterspells in this deck, so Imps Mischief is sort of a counterspell, but what are very effective are just looking at people's hands, knowing kind of the lay of the land, or revealing information to the rest of the table. I've definitely used these because I don't have counterspells, and I know that the person who I'm targeting has something they could like win with, and maybe there's another blue player at the table that I'm trying to influence politically by revealing the win in this other player's hand, so get them to save their counters for that person, let them fight it out, and then try to go off after that.
So that's, and or you've got Cabal Therapy in there, which is great because I didn't realize that had flashback sack a creature. So you can, if you're trying to back up like your final win, whatever it is, you can flashback your Cabal Therapy and sack Nashi again. Which is...
exactly. Like a Cabal Therapy, let's say I pick an opponent who's playing a blue and I know they've got a couple counterspells in hand. I know one of them is Pact. So I say Pact on the first time. They reveal their hand. I see a Fierce Guardianship. So then I flash back, sacrificing Nashi, and then say Fierce Guardianship. And they've either got to use the Fierce right there or just let it go.
Yeah.
So
that's nuts.
So that's good. Thoughtseize is pretty amazing when you have Villas out. Inquisition of Kozilek, Duress, like all those are very useful. I also have a Cabal Therapist in the deck, so it's another effect that is similar to Cabal Therapy, obviously, but it's on a creature. Reanimate, useful card.
So you were saying there's a reanimation package in the deck. So what's your so you're trying to like entomb Villas and reanimate it basically? Like it's specifically
Villas is a pretty good target for reanimation. Villas and Crick are pretty good for that. Turgrid isn't bad sometimes. Oppo, Sidisi, like all those are good hits for it. Dothi, like anything like that you can use to either disrupt opponents, find your own cards that you need, or generate card draw, or find a way to turn into mana positivity.
And you're specifically relying on what do you call it? Are you specifically relying on Entomb basically as your thing to load up the graveyard, or do you have other stuff in place?
Entomb, if I'm gonna do like just specifically like reanimate, I would probably rely on Entomb for that. But Skirk Prospector is pretty amazing. And on storm turns, there have been many times where I use Skirk Prospector as a way to get some utility creatures in the yard. No, I'm sorry, not Skirk Prospector. What am I thinking of?
I pulled it up.
Scourge.
I was like, Scourge Familiar.
Scourge Familiar? Yep. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, wrong color, wrong card. Scourge Familiar, yeah.
Scourge
that guy's a house.
Is
absolute house.
So yeah, I've been running that in Kirik, and that was a staple in Villas, and like I've loved that card for a long time. It's so awesome to be able. So I played way back, way Type 2 days. I ran the Yawgmoth's Bargain deck, and that deck used Scourge Familiar to great advantage because it would just you get that out there and you pay so much life, you discard cards, and then you hit people with, I want to say it was like Soul Feast, 5 times or something. It was a crazy deck. It was very stupid. But Scourge Familiar is absolutely insane, especially when you're on that Peer into the Abyss turn. It's like that's the first thing you drop. You just use all your mana, whatever resources you can, to get that Scourge Familiar out there, and then you're good to go. You're ready to party for sure.
Yep, Scourge Familiar is great. Almost every time I cast Peer into the Abyss, that's like the number one card that I'm looking for. I'm trying to drop that Scourge Familiar down as fast as possible, and then turn that giant bulk of cards in my hand into mana, and then transform that into something else. So speaking of mana, I think the next few cards are kind of a hodgepodge of different things. There's Bubbling Muck, which is just gonna make my swamps tap for more.
Solid ritual.
Tendrils of Agony. If you have like a long enough storm turn, Tendrils of Agony can turn into a win. It oftentimes just gets me enough life to keep going for a little bit more, and hurts enough people that that I can stay in the game. Feed the Swarm feels like a auto include for Black these days.
That's removal,
just getting
right?
rid
That's Zorch.
getting rid of a creature or enchantment. Yeah,
massive.
Deluge, of course, Deluge. As you said, creature heavy meta. Sometimes you gotta let things go, and Deluge can get you there. And then a nice little gold border Yawgmoth's Will. My other one is in a different deck, but I mean, Yogg's Will, since so much stuff can end up in our graveyard, like it's a Skirk Prospector dumping almost your entire hand, playing Yogg's Will. It's pretty nice.
Scourge Familiar, yeah.
Scourge, yeah. God, I keep saying that. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it. You're doing better than I am with all the names. So, and Yogg's Will is like also like for mono black storm, it's huge because it lets you just redo all the rituals. It lets you redo tutors. Like you basically doubling up your mana and doubling up your storm count. And you know, God forbid, like you've got the Aether Flux out there, but don't have the other pieces. Yogg's Will's gonna let you like really churn through everything a second time. It's like, especially because it's so ritual intensive, and it looks like the CMC on things is very, very low. So you went through, it looks like all the sorceries. No Adnos, correct?
No Adnos. We do not run Adnos in this deck. There are too many things that are high CMC, and our life total is like we're chopping at it all the time.
Yeah, of course.
So Adnos is a bad card for this deck. It is a great card in general. Bad card for this deck. Peer is significantly better.
Because like you don't want to like, oh, you know, turn 2 you're attacking with Nashi, and flipping paying 5 life to even start ad nauseam doesn't make any sense.
No. It's like, how about we start at 35 and like there's like 5 or 6 cards that are 6 CMC in the deck, and then there's 2 cards that are like 7 and 8 CMC.
Yeah, there's
so
a whole pile.
Yeah, you don't want to nuke yourself like that. It's not a good ad nos deck. But we get to creatures, and there's some good creatures up in here. Also of note, one thing you were talking to me about originally was Exsanguinate being in the deck, and
okay,
I did not run Exsanguinate after playtesting it a few times. I just found that it was not a great card in the deck. It's a good card, but you're generally not making a shit ton of mana.
Yeah.
So you're not trying to like exsanguinate the table to death. You can make a bunch of mana with Scourge Familiar Scourge Familiar.
Yep. We got there. We did it.
Woo! Finally got there. But usually you want that for something else.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to dump it all into an exsanguinate and then be like, wah, wah.
So what I find where I find Exsanguinate like really flourishing a lot, and of course this is in different decks, is like if I'm on the ropes, like getting to the end of the barrel and low on life, your sun's getting real low, then like you're like X equals 6 Exsanguinate can kind of like get you back, or even like X equals 4. Like sometimes that 12 life is all you need to keep the party going. So that's like part of where my, like, of course, like, yeah, sure, dropping 40 cards with Scourge Familiar feels great and just bonk the table with it. But I also like the idea of doing it like as like I need a quick fix to kind of get back in the game here, and I find that usually gets it done. But so you're not running it, but it's also because like early on there's no way to cast it, right? Like you're not doing like you've got 0, like you're tight on mana and you're doing things so fast that like at 5 mana you don't want that in your opener for sure.
No.
Not.
And if you hit it off Nashi, it's useless.
Yeah, that's also true. That's very, very true. So what do we got for creatures here?
So we got Hope of Girapur. Obviously, it's a pretty good way to stop somebody. If there's only one blue player at the table, you better believe I'm swinging it at them and cracking it before I cast anything else. Cabal Therapist, a similar hand disruption. Dark Confidant to get a little bit more look at cards.
Advantage.
Dothi Voidwalker seems kind of essential these days. I like being able to play with other people's libraries, and Dothi allows a lot of that. Oppo, because sometimes you gotta stop that turn 1 fetch. Grim Hireling, because it's pretty awesome to hit people and get treasures.
Grim Hireling is, so for me, like I always look at Grim Hireling and I'm like, God damn it, it's so like 4 mana is so brutal, but like I've just seen people more and more focusing on this card. People absolutely love it, and it's one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. So if you're swinging at 2 people, you'll get 4 treasure tokens, and like you're paying with life off the top for Nashi's ability, which is great. And then like it lets you just play extra cards if you like. It's a crazy card. It seems really good in this deck, and really good in most decks, honestly. Like just even if you're like with me, like running Marin and I've got a mana dork that's doing nothing and somebody's open, that's an extra 2 mana, you know, that could save it for later as a treat.
For sure. And I mean the black and sacrifice X treasures ability is not insignificant on that either.
Oh yeah, so it's got like sorcery speed removal as well is crazy, because like if you've got 2 treasures, then you can give something -1, like -1/-1, which is great. Like it's like you can use the treasures to activate that ability on multiple levels, which is really cool. Like it feeds itself, which is crazy.
Absolutely. It's pretty great. Cryptcast, because again, Urborg in the deck, and I think I'm running 6 swamps, so like, you know, the mana doubling is great, but largely the extort ability is the main deal.
Especially
extort whatever you can.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say extort whatever you can, get
Yep.
as much life back as you can.
And on your storm turn, it's also again pivotal. Like you absolutely need that shit to storm off. Like
Yep.
or you don't need it, but it helps. Like if you're with that Scourge Familiar hand, like you're just every extra card you discard is an extra hit off the extort, and it is also helping you gain that life back that you're chopping away the whole game. So I see the value for sure.
And we've talked about him. Here's that Scourge Familiar.
A flyer, notably a flyer.
A flyer. A flyer. It's so funny he's a flyer. It's really great. Turgid, pretty awesome. I have no idea what the back of Turgid does. I'm sure it's also relevant, but the front of Turgid's pretty great, so we're just going to be considered the front of Turgid.
So it's TIR.
TERGR. I did. I did.
There you go. TR I did. TERGR I did. There you go. So Turgid is, so I ran Turgid in Marin for a while as like a flex freak of the week card.
People get bummed out about that card.
Oh,
they will spend their removal on.
Yep,
on
it'll
Turgid
just the people
fast.
freak right out and be like, "No, we got to get rid of that," because they don't want to give up their fetches. They don't want to, and plus you got 3 or 4. It looks like 5 discard spells in there, so you could like bonk somebody with it and try to get a permanent if you really want to get crazy. It looked like most of it was non-creature spells as far as your discard stuff, but even so, like Turgid is really disruptive. Like disruptive both on the battlefield in the game state, and also like it'll, along with like Nashi's ability of like zorching people's top decks, it's also gonna make people like not think clearly. It'll disrupt people's thought process when a Turgid hits, because they'll just be like, or they'll they'll forget about it. Like people will consistently like, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice this dockside, and you're like, yeah, you are, and they're fuck.
Thank you. Yeah.
Which like it's a really brutal card, especially in something that's not like fully focused on that strategy, because it will trip people up so badly. 5 mana is expensive. Again, 5 mana is expensive. Like it's up for me. It's up there with your boy with Mr. Slappy Hands with the Wandering Archaic. Like it's a huge, like 5 mana is a huge expenditure, and people will go absolutely berserk when it's on the field. It will totally bungle up everybody's thought process. It grinds the game down a bit. Like it is, I wouldn't go so far as to say game warping, but definitely affects the battlefield in a way that really changes the dynamic of how people are playing.
I agree. And I've definitely used Turgid as a way to just stop people from going off. If they, like, I've been playing against one dude who's got a Razakat's deck, and it really messes with that deck pretty significantly. So
what else are we working with creatures here? You got a few more cards
left. cEDH,
solid.
obviously pretty useful. Gary, gotta love good old Gary. There's a lot of black pips in this deck, and Gary can absolutely, for me, Gary, I'll take over Exsanguinate, because Gary you're guaranteed to get a hit out of that.
And if you've got a couple of reanimation spells as well, like you can play it that way.
And we also mentioned both Crick and Villas, and both of those guys are great. They're just super useful in the deck. Villas is incredible because you just get extra card draw off of playing anything with Nashi.
It's card draw, it's removal, it's just got everything built into it.
Yeah, it's so good.
Carrick is a great cost reducer as well. Like lets you storm that much crazier. So is that it for the? Oh no, we've still got enchantments to go through. Is that correct?
Enchantments, only 5, and then we got lands, and that's basically it. So
let's take a look.
Necropotence seems like a staple, and then we have Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, and Necromancy as like the reanimation enchantments, which, if you're going to run one, might as well run them all.
So all 3
and
of
I've
those
definitely used them on other.
That's right where I was going to go. Is all 3 of those are any graveyard. So you can either with 2 of them you can do it sorcery speed. You're getting it from other people on your turn, and you're getting out like whatever you want. But then necromancy is if you keep up 3 mana, people will mostly assume it's going to be an opposition agent, but hitting people with that necromancy is wild at instant speed. It's tough to fuck around with things like with like breach lines with a necromancy. Like there's not a lot that's gonna like fuck up a breach line with it, but other strategies, like it's gonna fuck up like spell seeker loops like real bad. I've tried to use it to disrupt the new one, the hermit, that like the hermit from the Innistrad set. It's like you can sacrifice it to counter a spell, and then you play it again on the flip side, and it like your spells can't be countered. But the thing is, like, it's I don't remember if that has like it's hard to take that out of the graveyard and like disrupt with it. Like I remember getting kind of
I think once you cast the disturb, like if they try to cast it for disturb, you can't
respond to it. But there's so many good targets for necromancy. Like getting out like dockside, just like nope, I take the dockside instead is just like so easy, so cool, such a good look. And there's usually something else in there. You know, it's like, to me, necromancy, it obviously costs 3 mana, but it's up there with your Noxious Revival as far as like graveyard disruption for sure. Like it's and people don't expect it. It's like if you hit an instant speed necromancy to fuck up somebody's combo, they're like, spicy. Like it's it definitely is. Like it's worth it for that spice factor alone. Do you find, I saw necropotence on there, do you use that like in combination with things like top to like change around the, like, is there any top deck manipulation that you can do off of that?
I mean, so necropotence also works with Bullets of Citadel. So,
right. Yep. So you look at the card, and if you don't like, there you go. So that's good top deck manipulation as well. So you can kind of Zorch it from there. Awesome. So what's the land base? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So no. Land base is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 snow covered swamps. I think I have to update my list online. Cabal coffers.
Yep.
Shizo, Death Storehouse to give Nashi fear.
Yep.
Urborg, as we mentioned.
On brand flavor wise as well.
Yep. Yep. All rats have fear. Vault of Whispers, because we are playing Mox Opal.
Oh, interesting.
Witch's Cottage is another way to respond for. So if you have like a creature that you want back in the graveyard, if you have 3 or more other swamps, you drop Witch's Cottage, and it's like a, what is that, Mortuary Mire, but it can come into play untapped, and it's a swamp.
Oh, interesting. And it's top of library, which again works with works with Nashi.
Cabal Pit, because sometimes you need to be hitting things for -2/-2 using a land ability. And then we have a few different fetches. So we got Verdant, Bloodstained, Polluted, Marsh Flats, and Prismatic Vista.
Okay. So you're like the standard fetch package for a monocolored deck.
Yep. Nykthos is pretty great. You have a lot of black pips in this one. And then we start getting more utility land. So Blast Zone can help remove some stuff.
Yep.
Gemstone, obviously. Deserted Temple, because if you're playing Nykthos, if you're playing Cabal Coffers, Deserted Temple is like, people forget about this card, but it is so good. It could make so much mana off of those.
So wait, Deserted Temple. I'm thinking of Petrified Wood or whatever, Petrified Field.
Deserted Temple has an activated ability of 1 tap on tap target land.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you're relying heavily on that Coffer's mana base, but you're not no expedition map or anything like that.
No. I'm not relying super heavily on the Coffer's mana base, but I am I'm including it because you want to be able to have a large amount of mana if the game goes long enough.
Yep.
So then we got Ancient Tomb, we got City of Traders, we got Emergent Zone, the aforementioned Urza Saga feels like kind of a must in most decks these days. Buried Ruin is a flex spot that maybe will come out and just turn into something else. But say we want the Bola Citadel back, or the Flux back, or the top back, we can get it with that. And then the last land is the Bajuka Bog, because sometimes you need to nuke another person's graveyard, and it comes into play tapped. But you know what? It's a land.
Yeah, it's a free slot. So no modal, no MDFCs.
No. Like Agadeem's Awakening.
Agadeem's Awakening. There's the one that does like the fakey Kaya's Ghost form, I think. It's an instant.
Yeah. There's that one.
That comes into play tapped, I believe. I don't know if there's a third one. There probably is that I'm just not thinking of.
I think there's just those two in mono black, and there's several different cards that I don't have in here, which are lands that are maybe other mono black players might be like. Was it Castle Lochthwain? I'm not running in this deck.
I was thinking Castle Lochthwain. Lake of the Dead's a little tough with only 7 swamps. Like that's a little bit challenging. I was thinking Field of Ruin is so field. Let me pull it up real quick. It's not Field of Ruin. What is it? It's a land that like when you play it, you have to sacrifice 2 untapped lands, and it taps for 4 colorless.
Yeah, what is that? Lotus Field?
No, it's not Lotus Field. It's like it's field, some sort of.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Ruinous landscape, something like that. Well,
something like that.
I can't remember.
It's an older card.
It's literally in fucking Carrick right here. Let's take a look for it. It's definitely old as shit. I want to find it because it's.
I mean, I think probably the reason I don't play that is that like I don't have a super high land count, and sacrificing lands.
How many lands are you running?
28.
Oh, okay. Yep, 28 is fair. Here we go. Scorched Ruins.
Yeah, there we go.
Sacrifice 2 untapped lands. It taps for 4 colorless. It's definitely like it's a hairy one for sure. It's cool to be able to like it. And the thing is, like it's like mana positive, I guess. Like, but it also works against your coffers, your Cabal coffers, because you're going down lands. And I mean, nobody's really blowing up that many lands, though. With Boseiju, we'll see. But it's definitely like all of a sudden a Boseiju target for sure. What does the black one do? The black channel land. Do you remember?
I was about to look it up right now.
Is it relevant?
Let's see. Kamigawa channel land. What do we got here? Okay, you want to rank them? That's fine. Just tell me what they are. Takenuma Abandoned Mire says channel 3 and a black. Discard Takenuma Abandoned Mire. Mill 3 cards and return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. The ability costs 1 or less to activate for each legendary creature you control.
It's for sure. Like you could reanimate your Villas, like, or no, it comes back to your hand though. So you're like, it's not that hot. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I have reanimation and like maybe I want things in my hand, but I'm also not running a lot of creatures, and I'm not really trying to mill my library so much. I want to be able to control what goes into the graveyard.
So what does the deck like fold against? What do you have trouble playing against?
Obviously, like because we want to manually storm when you have things like a Mystic Remora or a Ristic Study out. You have to be very careful with what you're doing.
Yep.
Some players will not have enough going on that you can get away with murder, and even with those cards out. But generally, if those are out, it's pretty rough. Drannith Magistrate is probably the #1 bummer because that's like, how about we just turned it off? We just slap the brakes on this.
You don't get to do that for sure. So Drannith Magistrate totally hoses it. I was thinking about that.
Rule of law effects are not great.
Yeah, because you're trying to storm, right? Like, so
it's Rest in Peace isn't actually that bad. Like, because I can go without my graveyard. Like, it can be useful, but I can also not have to use my graveyard.
But Grafdigger's Cage will fuck you up, right? Oh no, because they get exiled first. You're not playing them out of the library. You're exiling it off the library, and then you're casting it. So Grafdigger's Cage is decent. So and I guess like just
Technically, I could play Grafdigger's Cage in the deck and just be like, you
and
know?
then the and then like I'm sure just like solid aggro strategies are going to be really tough for you because you're relying on the life total so much. Like, you know, if you're
Yeah.
getting just pressured by a Nagila deck or getting slapped by Crom every fucking turn, that can be definitely difficult.
Hmm.
So that's the only other thing I wanted to ask about is the ninjutsu ability. Like, it's just not
Totally irrelevant.
it's just not in your hand. Like, I remember like when we
Nope.
first saw it, we were like, this is amazing. We're going to be ninjutsuing it all the time and getting the thing from everybody. And it just realized like, oh wait, no, it's not commander ninjutsu. It's just regular ninjutsu. So it's going to be almost impossible to use
Yep.
outside of the 99. So I thought that was really funny. Like that.
Yeah,
And it
my first iteration of the deck was like all these evasive creatures, and then it was brought to my attention that it's not Commander Ninjutsu. And I'm like, well,
looks,
that changes everything.
looks like we got to pivot here. A little change of plans.
Yeah. But I'm happy with the pivot. Honestly, it's performed really well, and I like that you're not really counting on that ability. That ability is great. It's amazing. It could be good in another deck, but like the fact that you can just get Nashi out and start swinging with Nashi and having the effect happen is pretty good. It keeps people on their toes. And yeah, being able to commander ninjutsu would be lovely, but it'd be a completely different deck. And I think I'd miss a lot of the pieces I'm able to include by not having to worry about the evasive creatures.
Yeah, because without all those evasive creatures, it lets you put in so much more. There's so many more free slots in the deck to free up for storm
Yep.
cards, for disruption, for whatever. So I really like it. You're definitely, you're definitely going to see me trying to run it at least once or twice. I'm really excited about it, and
Oh man, play with it.
I'm really glad that you are having so much luck and so much fun with it, playing into other pods. What are people's what are reactions when you're like, okay, I'm playing Nashi? Are people like taking it seriously? Are they like where what are
Depending
the
on where I'm playing it, like the pickup games, some people were like, "Oh man, that card's not out yet." I don't know. I'm like, "Well, I'm playtesting. It's all good." uh, Sometimes people are like, "It must die at all costs," and make stubborn decisions about like removing things on my board when there are other things on everybody else's board that affect their gameplay more.
Yep.
They really hate the like blind Nashi hits because I'm not shy about that. I'll just swing at people and see what happens.
Yep.
And people lose their mind about that. They're like, I don't want this stuff exiled. I don't know what could happen. I don't like to gamble. And
Yep.
so
It bugs people up. But are people taking
Yep.
it? My thought was like, are people taking it seriously as like a CEDH general? Like if you sit down
Yeah.
in an established pod
there.
of like
Nobody's like, oh, what are you gonna do with that? Like, I think anybody looks at it and you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. What are you gonna do with that? I'm gonna fucking take your win cons. Like, what do you think's gonna?
I'll take it with guns. I'll cast Peers of the Mist off the top
I give
of the
you
library for
3
7
guesses what I'm
That's
gonna
what
do
we're
with
doing.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And then I played it into a pod on a popular CDH Discord recently, and the other players like, oh, I haven't seen this yet, and then they read the card and they're like, wait a minute, what? Hold up. And I won, I think, both the games that I played that day.
Awesome.
So it was good.
So it's got a decent record as well. Like it's doing decent as far as
I mean,
like,
it's not
it's
like
good.
a top deck in the meta at all, but
No,
like it's I think it's averaging around like I don't know, I'm bad with those, but maybe 35% win
you're
rate,
winning games. Like if
Yeah.
you're winning games, like then that's what counts, right? It's not like you're going in
Yep.
there and it's just like falling on its face. So, and
Yep.
it sounds like it's pretty easy to like, even with your tutors, like your cruel tutor and stuff like that. Like it's easy enough to like set that peer up turn to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so you've got cruel tutor and vampiric tutor and the scheming symmetry. So you've got a few things. Were there any other top of deck tutors that were helping set that up? Or like what else was setting that up?
The instant speed tutors. Really, there's only one instant speed tutor that does top of the deck in this deck, and that's Vampiric Tutor.
Yep.
Then you have what is it? Imperial Seal. You have
Right, the Imp
Symmetry,
Seal.
You have Cruel Tutor. Those are all other ones you can get to the top of the deck. The one card that was on the bubble that I haven't really decided I'm gonna slot in or not is Insidious Dreams. And Insidious Dreams is a card that's 3 and a black. You can discard X amount of cards when you cast that, and that's how many cards you find. You put them on top of your library in a given order. Yep. So that's a pretty good one if Bolas' Citadel is the way to go.
Oh, right.
The challenge that I've found is that oftentimes I will play a bunch of cards in the first couple of turns, and then if I were to try to cast Insidious Dreams on my second turn, I won't have enough cards to discard to make it really viable. You know, so
okay.
Like if I don't know, if I had something like a Necropotence out, then Insidious Dreams becomes a little bit more hot of a hit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call. Like that's definitely a real tempting one that I'm looking at pretty hard and considering. I'm not sure what I'd take out for that. I think that and what was the other card that I was saying? Oh, Barry Gruen. That and Barry Gruen are the two biggest spots in the deck that I'm trying to figure out what to do with.
Insidious Dreams feels really good with the Citadel, and then just with Nashi, like even being able to do that for 4 mana is still really hot. Like, because you only have to discard one card, you know. So like it is disadvantage, but like you're not worried about that disadvantage if you're paying 7 life for a Peer into the Abyss.
Yeah, I mean, Insidious Dreams is when I was running my Massacre Girl deck, that's how I would set up the win most often. Yep. But yeah, I just haven't decided on it yet. It's probably going to go in because I do like the damage trigger being on the stack and then being able to cast a top deck tutor, because that's a lot more able to happen than like I cast a tutor, now I'm going to go to combat, like now I'm going to nuke your Nashi. So you know, you generally prefer the post damage tutor because the ability will be there. Like the ability is there once it's on the stack, then you have that for the rest of the turn. Nashi doesn't have to be on the field for it. That's fine. But
so you're once the damage hits, then in response to the trigger, then you're hitting the tutor. That makes a lot more sense rather than it getting basically any sort of shenanigans happening that you can removal, blockers getting flashed out, whatever. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
So we're at like an hour. This is a solid deck tech. We went over it pretty deep. I love it. Anton, thank you so much. Everybody, there will be deck lists down below. You'll be able to check them out. And Anton is an absolutely incredible brewer. I cannot brewer. An incredible brewer. I cannot speak highly enough of the snappiness which you're able to put together decks and your willingness to go out there and just absolutely put them to the test, testing them on all different discords and stuff like that. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me for this. Thank you. And
yeah, man, always good to see you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Be good out there. And yeah, everybody, thank you so much for watching.